The one thing that motivates all people is the question we'll be answering today. So is there one thing that motivates you, each individual in this room right now, and one thing that motivates every single individual as a group? We all follow the same thing as human beings. Well, my pursuit of this question starts in the streets of Athens, Greece, where Socrates once walked about 30 years ago. Not Socrates, but myself 30 years ago. And I wasn't reading philosophy. I was reading from the book of Hard Knocks. I had my first full-time job, and this is a job I had worked at least for a year to get into, and it had like next to nothing pay, but I chose it because I'm a pretty idealistic person. Here I am asking, what's the ultimate why kind of questions. And even back then, I wanted a job, I wanted to do something that would give me meaning for the rest of my life, okay? So I'm thinking to myself, what could that be? And so I chose foreign missionary service, eternal values, helping the poor. What could be more meaningful and significant than that? I'm like, I could do this for the rest of my life. I know it'll motivate me. So I was excited to do this, and I got my idealistic 20-year-old self out there with some work, and all my motivation and excitement met my first full-time manager. And you can kind of understand where this story is going. Part of this story I remember culminated, I'm driving down one of those Athens streets on my little Euro scooter, yelling, cussing mad into my helmet so no one can hear me. I was pissed off. I was livid angry because of what my boss had done to me. A 20-year-old, I thought this was going to be the dream. I thought he was going to be pursuing that same dream with me. But it turns out it wasn't that way. The weekly staff meetings turned into the weekly shame meeting. Okay, this guy was a workaholic. He was dynamic. This guy had one of those constitutions that just doesn't stop. One of those people that gets like 2 hours of sleep, if that. They just kept going and going. And if you weren't him, this guy was, he worked in jungles in Indonesia where there was like nothing, and he got chased by people with spears, and it's like, you could never live up to his stories. I lived on bugs out in the forest. I got diseases. I left my home and family for months, weeks at a time. And he would constantly tell us these stories, unless you're sacrificing like this, you can't, you're not really living the life. And so everything that I gave wasn't enough. We were always diminished in who we were, constantly being shamed and put down. And then, but when the donors came for this organization, well, the red carpet got rolled out. Everything was nice, and there was no shaming of them. Everything that they needed was supplied. But me as like a coworker, if I needed information from him, he wasn't available. He wouldn't even give me the little bit of information that would keep me from staying up all night to make up the deadline. So how do you think I felt? How do you think my coworkers felt? A bunch of other 20-year-olds, idealists like me, and we were all pissing mad. I was so mad, after work I'd be like shaking talking about the guy. It took me years to get over this experience. So I learned that this was all about him. This wasn't about some cause. This was about something else. But I was crushed. My dream, why was I so mad? Partly because, my dream as a 20-year-old to have a life of meaning and significance, I felt like it was just crushed. If these good people couldn't pull this off, what was it? What were we chasing? So I was left with this question, what is the one thing that motivates me? And I really didn't know. I came back to the United States and became a serial entrepreneur, pursuing different things that I thought would fill my heart. And about maybe 5 years ago, I can remember my daughter saying to me, "Dad, you look like you're dead inside." Teenage daughters have that penetrating understanding. They knew that the light had kind of gone out in my eyes. So it caused me to question, what is the one thing that motivates all people? And I found that as I started to research it and dig into it, I wasn't alone in this situation, okay? I entered into this world where there's this crisis that we all face. But it's not unique. When Gallup does surveys of employees across the nation, we get these kind of statistics that you've seen probably a million times, okay? And I want us to help illustrate this because I've heard these, I read these off every single time. 70% disengaged, 18% working against, 51% looking for new work, higher turnover, more safety incidents, more product defects, less productivity. That's the way the average workforce stands up. So I need some volunteers. I need 10 people to show us what this looks like. So I just need 10 people to stand up and join me up front here. So we got one, and could you stand up and just hold this on the other end here? You're going to be our rope holder. So, okay, since you're the first eager beavers, you're the engaged people. So come on up front. You three are the engaged workforce. So the average workforce, you're going to need to move forward here because we need 10 people on this line. So we can get. Wow. So you three go up to the front of the line there. And these people are going to be three. They're going to be pulling on the rope like this is a tug of war. You don't have to pull too hard because it's just So I need some more. I need 7 more volunteers. This is typical. We need some disengaged people. All right, so you guys aren't pulling. You're just kind of hanging on. Okay, so we need 5 people that are hanging on. So we got 3 engaged, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, you guys are going to be pulling, okay? You guys sort of assume this stance, like you're going to be, we're going to dig in. You're working hard. Get that stance. There you go. You got it. Okay. You are first of our actively disengaged people. So you're actually going to be pulling the other way.
Yeah.
Well, actually, just walk up and down the line and tell everybody what a loser team this place is.
It's horrible here.
This is horrible here. I mean, this is what I did. This is the worst place. I didn't stay actively. wasn't just hanging on to the rope. I was complaining to my other workplaces. This boss is horrible. This place works. And what do you say when a new person comes along? You usually tell them, good luck.
Have fun here.
Welcome to the pit.
Yeah.
So this is your average workforce. 3 people pulling, and then 5 people hanging on just because they need the paycheck. They're satisfied workers. And then you have 2 that are just like, they're smart enough to go, I don't even think this is a good place. This is horrible. This stinks. And they run up and down the line and they discourage everyone in the line. So that's what the average workforce, imagine this team pulling against a team that has 10 people pulling in the other direction. But this is the way our average workforces line up. Thank you. You can put down the rope and resume your seats there. So that's what the average workforce is. I'm not alone. We're not alone in not knowing what this one thing that motivates all people. So what is that one thing? So I began asking people. I would go around, in my business endeavors, I would go around and ask people, what's the one thing that motivates all people? I would ask CEOs. And what do you think the number one response that I got was?
Purpose?
Money.
I don't know. I was in New York City sitting next to a guy who had a big business, and I asked, he leans over to me and he says, so what do you do? I say, I answer one question. It's what is the one thing that motivates all people? And I go, what do you think it is? First word is, I don't know. What do you think the next one is? The average, what does a boss say that the average worker comes to work for?
Money.
Money. That's the next one. Then I heard someone back there, achievement. I want to make something. What's another one that typically people might see if that's not on the list yet? Power, like their career. It's a career move. I want to get up the ladder. I want to be on top of the ladder eventually so that I can have the power. That's what people want. But that's really not it. That's not the answer. I mean, I've tried these things. Have you guys ever worked for money, achievement, or power? How long does that last? So the thing that's really interesting, when I ask people, these are the top answers that I get. I don't know, money, power. But when I ask the question slightly differently, everyone answers the question correctly. It's because this question, I'm asking it to your left brain. What's the one thing that motivates you at work? People go, they put their brain in a box and their left brain gets, let's see, carry the 1, divide by 2, maybe, no. We're trying to do the math, what motivates us. But our right brain knows what we love. It knows what motivates our heart truly. So if I ask this question differently, everyone will know the answer to this question. And everyone answers it the same way. And everyone answers it correctly. And everyone answers what is the one thing that motivates all people. You ready? Click. I call this the eternity question, okay? Now, the answer to this question has to be ultimate, right? Because we're asking, what's the one thing, not one or two things, okay? So it has to be one thing. It has to last forever. It has to keep motivating you. Okay, that's why I call it the eternity question. It has to last for all eternity. And the last thing, it has to work for everybody, not just one or two people, or else it wouldn't be the ultimate why, okay? So if you could choose just one thing for all eternity to be with you, what would you choose? Money alone? You know, you could have a room full of money, but that's all you get, nothing else. You could have achievement alone. You could save all the whales, build great buildings, accomplish anything that you wanted, but that's all you get is your list of accomplishments on the wall. Status alone, power. So you have all the power. You're the top of the career. You're the CEO of everything. You're the only person on the planet. So that's it. You get it. You control everything. Or you could be surrounded by those who love and care for you for all eternity. Which would you choose? Yeah. And this is usually the response I get. I get laughs like, 4. You know, no one ever chooses 1, 2, or 3 when faced with this question. Your right brain all knows immediately what it is, and so much so that the other ones are ridiculous by comparison. 100%. Everyone answers this question the same way. Because we're all wired. We've all experienced what it is to be loving and connected. The one thing that motivates all people is loving connection. So that's what I call it, okay? And it's kind of hard to talk about loving connection in the business world, but I think we're all big enough to understand what we're talking about here. This is about belonging. This is about all the connecting that we need as human beings. We all show up every day and say, in our workplaces, am I okay? Am I contributing? Am I valuable? Are you going to be there for me? And our families are the same thing. When we wake up, when we have a family that's secure and a workplace that's secure, we have this. People thrive with this stuff, okay? It motivates all people. And scientists like Sue Johnson, who studied this for years, she says this is the most fundamental wiring of every human being, is to be attached in loving connection. We start as small children, and it continues throughout all adulthood. That we thrive when we are connected, and we are motivated by this than any other thing that we encounter in our lives. So again, let me back up and explain a little bit what it means. Okay, so this is what the typical workforce, our workplace is. Like when I say we put it in the box, so we think, we got tasks to do. And you've got a worksheet that have this on this there, if you want to take some notes. And so we set up extrinsic rules, like we're going to make this quota. And when you make that quota, what do you get? Money, advancement, power, achievements. So we give extrinsic rules and we give those extrinsic rewards. And we manage people. We manage them just like we manage the inventory. Okay? It's a thing. We're doing a thing. We manage people like things. How do people like it to be treated like things? We don't particularly enjoy that. This is called the dopaminergic pathway. That's my $20 word for today. Dopamine, what is it? You've probably heard about it before. It's a neurotransmitter. And the irony is, this neurotransmitter, when it hits your nucleus accumbens, which is a part of your brain, it makes you happy. Happy! Like, we all want happy, right? Like when you make your goals, man, you feel happy. When you get a paycheck, happy. How about when you get your 10th paycheck? Do you feel the same happy as when you get your first paycheck? So there's a problem with this type of happy, the dopamine happy. It's a temporary happy, okay? And it gets worse. It's the type of happy that if you get stuck in it, you can get destroyed by it. It can kill you, okay? Dopamine is the thing that leads to addictions as well. Okay, so it's so dangerous that what your brain does is it downregulates it. So, it's designed to help you to find something like, oh, look, I found something that's going to help me live. Something that will help me, the rest of my teammates do their work better. Oh, good, I found it. Dopamine. But the second time you get it, your brain downregulates it. Okay, you found it, good, remember that. Next time it's like not so important. Like when you go to that restaurant, you have that one dish and it's like, oh man, I gotta have this. And you come back again, not as good as the first time. Why is that? Because the dopamine is not as high. You've already discovered it. The second time is good, but not as great. First bite of the donut's good. Second one, okay. Third one, Fourth donut, come on. The dopamine is no longer hitting. Okay, it downregulates on purpose because they've done studies with rats that, cocaine actually wires your dopamine to be stuck on. So it just keeps firing. They'll give rats water with cocaine in it, and they'll sit there right next to the food bowl, and they'll sit there with the cocaine button until they die. You could see the same thing in like meth addicts. Meth is like by far the most addictive substance on the planet. Okay, and they will take it until they age, their teeth fall out, all their relationships fall apart because they're stuck on this, because it's addictive. Okay, most normal people don't get to that level, but like my boss, what was he doing? He was pursuing those goals for himself. It was a dopamine pathway. Okay, so it's this vicious downward cycle of I get happy, but then it starts to cost the more I pursue it. Okay? So we see that this results in our world today. We have we all have heard of the opioid epidemic that's happening. That's a dopamine addiction. Okay? It's so bad that it's surpassed, along with suicide, the number one reason of death for 18 to 35-year-olds because they're pursuing dopamine to their own demise. So what do you think happens when we use dopamine as a reward within our businesses? Does it lead to excited, engaged employees? Diminishing returns. That's exactly right. So people's choice is either to be, addicted to it, and when they can't get it at work, you have these diminishing returns. A lot of our workplaces don't have, hey, I made a huge new project. It's not like you're going to be promoted every day and get a raise every day for the rest of your life. Nobody gets that. And so what do people do? They become the five hand holders. They're just like, I'm along for the ride. There's no more dopamine here, so I'll just resign to life because I'll go home and get my dopamine from my Netflix binge and my Facebook feed, or people like my boss, they latch into it. They become addicted to it in some way, okay? You got people that rise to the top or go-getters, but even they end up giving up over time. You get people like Andre Agassi, the number one tennis player in the 1990s. He said this, I'll let you into a dirty little secret. Winning changes nothing. He went on to say, what the hell is wrong with me? I'm the number one tennis player on the earth, yet I feel empty. I try to talk myself out of doom, yet I tell myself I can't be unhappy when I have money in the bank and my own plane. Another person, Buzz Aldrin, he was one of the guys that walked on the moon. Walked on the freaking moon, What could be better than that? But after he was done with that experience, they canceled the Apollo. He was suicidal, empty. He didn't have any more motivation. What are you going to do? Top that? And here's another good example, not just for an individual, but an entire nation, an entire world. When the Apollo 11 went to the moon, everybody was watching it on TV like, they're going to walk on the moon, Everybody's watching the TV sets just like, are they going to make it? Are they going to get back? Everybody watched it. The second one, the ratings were so low, nobody was watching it. By the third time, you know what the networks were running while people were walking on the moon? Soap operas. Because we don't know whose baby that is. We want to find out. We know that they can walk on the moon, so who cares? There's no dopamine in walking on the moon anymore. It's in the soap opera. So we're all wired for this, okay? So this is what the researchers say. Dr. Robert Lustig wrote a book called The Hacking of the American Mind. Our culture has been hacked by this. Our food is engineered to trigger dopamine. It has the right amount of sugar, the right amount of fat. Everything is triggered so that it will hit this dopamine circuit for you. We talked about drugs, alcohol, same pathway. Money, achievement, status, same pathway. We all have on our desks here, what do you all have? Little dopamine devices. You flip them out and like, Facebook! Why is Facebook exciting? Because you can flip your thumb and there's something new. It might be a friend. It might be something new. You find it. You just keep going. It's dopamine. And we're all wired for it. We spend an average 8 hours a day doing that. like those little rats pressing the button. Okay? So here's what, when we start to relate this to business, Harvard longevity study studied 268 individuals, said that those who pursued any of these big three things ended up unhappy and generally unsuccessful at the end of their lives. Edward Deci, who studied this for 40 years, points out that extrinsic rewards decrease motivation long term. Another guy, Paul Marciano, a Yale PhD who studies and specializes in motivation, he noted that carrots and sticks don't change the fundamental belief about life and work. It just changes a brief circumstance of life. Okay? A Harvard Business Review study said research suggests that by and large, rewards succeed at securing one thing only: temporary compliance. It goes on to say that rewards are actually punishments for others. If you don't get it, what does that do to the other 99 people in your organization that didn't get it? They feel punished. And then you have all this competition. I want to get it! Because you've just set up a dopamine pathway. Okay? And we're used to it, but that's what it does. So it sets up an organization to comply for a little bit, and then after time, they eventually will begin to fail. And then your managers go like, if we don't give these people something, they're not gonna do what we ask, these stupid people. Well, we've just set up a dopamine pathway. It's the exact outcome that you should expect. To quote another scientist, Mick Jagger, I can't get no satisfaction because I try and I try and I try. Okay, so let's do a little exercise. We've been talking a little bit, so let's all stand up and find one other person. Just get one other person that you're going to look at for a second. Hopefully we all find somebody. And if you don't find somebody, you might feel disconnected. All right, so instead of looking at the person, look at the floor. Okay? And repeat after me. I get more done than you do. I have the power, you don't.
I have power, you don't.
Look, I won the prize, not you.
Look, I won the prize, not you.
One more time. I get more done than you do.
I get more done than you do.
I have power, not you.
I have power, not you.
Look, I won the prize, not you.
Look, I won the prize, not you.
So how did that feel? Connected? Close? No. Isolating. Okay, you can have a seat. That's part of the dopamine pathway. Okay, it results in that ultimately. So the conclusion is you can't use dopamine to find your way to the ultimate happiness. Yes, it triggers happiness, but it's like donut happiness. One bite, and that's it. Because that's what it was designed for. Okay? Neither does using this in organizations make us happy or make us collectively happy or go in any direction together. It's not the fuel for motivation. It ends up in, at best, disengagement, at worst, addiction. Okay? So what do? Well, good thing there's another pathway in our brains. It's called the serotonin pathway. Or if you want the $50 word to say, serotonergic. So you can go back home and you can say, I learned about the serotonergic pathway. You can be really smart. Anyway, so serotonin allows us to, it's what is released in the brain when we experience loving connection. Okay? And that's why you all answered, yeah, I could do that for all eternity. Because you've all experienced serotonin. You know what it does? It makes us feel happy. Just like dopamine. That's why we confuse them a lot. But this one's different because it releases other pathways too. So it releases oxytocin, it releases endogenous opioids, it releases endocannabinoids, if you recognize any of those terms. Those are all happy things. And what it also does is all that cocktail put together gives us a sense of feeling, I don't need anything more. Have you ever seen anyone OD'd on loving connection? Like, hey, I got all these healthy relationships, so I'm really whacked out, you know? Oh, man. Never happens, okay? It's because it makes us thrive, actually. This is the type of thing, this cocktail and this pathway, it makes us thrive. When we're small children, I have my grandson who's like 1.5 years old. I see him with his mama, and he's just thriving. He's living in my house now as they switch jobs, so there's like 7 adults around this little kid, and we all love him to bits. So he's like filling up with this stuff all day long. He's got it perfect, So little children have to have it in order to thrive. They've done studies with like Romanian orphans. If they don't have it, they actually physically don't grow. They're shorter than the rest of the population. Their prefrontal cortex don't develop because it develops bathed in this type of connection. So it creates thriving, okay? A Harvard longevity study that I mentioned earlier that studied like 260 people for about 80 years from like their college until they were like, till their grave, essentially. It's been going on it's the longest study ever conducted on human beings. Its conclusion was this, that the happiest, most successful people were those that were surrounded by loving connection. Their businesses thrived, their relationships thrived. Everything in their life was thriving because they had loving connection, okay? And they were bathed in this serotonin all day long. You may have heard Malcolm Gladwell in his book write about this one town in Pennsylvania called Roseto. It's a little Italian town in the north of Pennsylvania, and back in the 60s, nobody below 55 died. The heart rate disease was half of what everyone else's was in the United States. Yet, they smoked, they drank, they ate their Italian food, they worked in the mines, they worked in the factories. What was the one controlling difference that the scientists that were studying this found? The Italian family. They lived multi-generationally. They were all connected. They all had loving connection, okay? They would all go to each other's house and play cards every night. They all go bowling together. They all did things together. They all felt safe. They all felt serotonin every day of their lives. They thrived. Here's another article called Are Emotional Disorders Really Disorders of Love? Nearly all human personal emotional success depends on being able to give and to accept love. And nearly all human personal failure reflects on an inability to do so. In fact, without it, we die. There was a middle-aged duke that did an experiment. They put babies and they never touched them. They perished. Obviously, that experiment was not ever done again, fortunately, but we know that from those records that children not touched die. We said the orphans that are not touched don't thrive. They have a syndrome called failure to thrive. Okay? So we can see that loving connection is the ultimate why. It leads to long-lasting happiness. We thrive as individuals. We thrive as groups with this. It in fact takes healthy groups to create this type of connection. So what you guys are doing is critical for each individual in this world to experience this. They spend more time with you guys in your organizations than they do anywhere else. Family is important, and more important than a workplace, definitely. But this is probably one of the most important things that and you guys have a great opportunity and great responsibility to create this kind of environment. So we're going to stand up and do another exercise real quick. Get with somebody else, a different person. All right? Face one other person.
Okay.
And this time you get to look at them instead of looking at the ground. All right, everybody have someone? Okay, repeat after me. I'm glad you're here. I hope you have a great day. People care for you. One more time. I'm glad you're here. I hope you have a great day. People care for you. So how did that feel? Much better. A simple, silly exercise, but totally different. Welcome to serotonin. So the ultimate why is the goal of every business. But the dilemma means it's like, I'm going to go back to my boss and say, hey everybody, we need to love each other. And everybody like, okay. We gotta love each other more. Stay in your office. Go talk to HR about that. So, first of all, how does this apply to business? That's the number one problem that we have here. So how does business look like this? So I need one more volunteer here to help me out. Someone just one, come on here, stand up. So you like sheep?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a sheep herder.
Okay.
Your job is to take care of the nice little lammies and make them sure they grow up, and then you bring them to your nice English market like this, back in the day. And so you spent all your day caring and producing nice sheep. Well, I happen to be a wheat farmer. So I live in the flatlands, you live in the hills, so your land doesn't lend itself to making wheat, but you need bread and things like that. So I make wheat on my flatlands. I'm doing something for you all day. I make sure that the wheat is harvested on time, it's not moldy, it's kept well. And I bring these nice wheat bushels to my English market, and you bring your nice little sheep, meh, and I say, here you go. And you take the wheat, and I take the sheep. I eat meat, you eat bread. We're happy, right?
Right.
Thank you. We've just conducted business. Did we serve each other all day long?
No.
Well, indirectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You helped tend the sheep, and I helped tend your wheat, so to speak, and then we traded it. Well, it got a little bit complicated as time went by. Whoops, went the wrong direction. That's why it's complicated. So you would bring your sheep, but I had gone to another market the day before and exchanged my wheat for, well, that's not British, but it's a dollar. But, so I had my dollar, I had exchanged it for money, and so I would give you my money. What does my money represent?
Your labor.
My labor. And I give you the dollar for the sheep, and we both say, thank you. We're happy. She's got money that she can go and buy something else with. I have a sheep. We're both happy. It's just a step removed from what we did before. But ultimately, you can have a seat, thanks. Ultimately, business is about serving one another. All business transactions, although in our day and age, they get a little bit more extended than even just the dollar and the sheep, it's all about serving one another, okay? And we all do it with other people all day long. So what are the benefits of employee engagement? When employees are engaged, we've seen some of these statistics before. Like when you tell your boss, like, it's about loving connection. And he'll be like, what's the numbers? And I'll say, you could say, it talks about 37% reduction in turnover. Huge. 48% fewer safety incidents. If you're in the medical field, that's very huge. Fewer product defects, higher productivity, higher profits. And this isn't just isolated. Here's a little vignette from Molson Coors. Highly engaged employees, they found, were 5 times more likely than non-engaged employees to have to not have safety incidents, and 7 times more likely to not have lost time because of those safety incidents. The bottom line, they saved $1,721,760 in safety costs in 1 year. So how much did they save in turnover costs? How much did they save in absenteeism? It goes on and on and on. The Caterpillar company resulted in a 8.8 million annual savings from just one factor. The savings of this is huge. The Corporate Leadership Council did a study of 50,000 individuals and found that the engaged and connected employees were 20% more productive and 87% less likely to leave the organization. Okay, so what this does is it provides the goal for all organizations. It gives us intrinsic things to point people to in our organizations, the ultimate why. We're not managing people, we're actually leading people. And get this, the key to leadership is not saying, follow me, it's saying, look where I'm going. Why do we follow Martin Luther King Jr., even though he's dead? Because we know where he's going, okay? When you're going towards the ultimate why, because 100% of us said, yes, that's what would motivate me. And it's true. That's what science points out. It motivates us all. So when we make this our ultimate goal, we all get there. Okay? And people will follow because people want to go there. You're not motivating them to a place where they don't want to go. So the conclusion is the ultimate why motivates us all and causes all people and businesses to thrive. It's loving connection. And that's great news. The dilemma that we have, though, is that it takes more than that. Like if you just go back and tell all your people, hey, be sure that you're doing loving connection today. It's the big idea, loving connection, okay? But what we really need is a a culture that this is the way we transmit ideas in our world. Okay? We transmit ideas through culture. Our values and our beliefs are transmitted through culture. Studies show that if you see one person doing things, so if you go back and say loving connection, you can say loving connection, loving connection, loving connection 3, 4 times. People will be like, and they won't do it. But if they see 3 people doing it once, they'll start doing it immediately. That's culture, okay? The other thing that's interesting about culture is that we have all of these implicit rules that we don't talk about that fuel what's going on, okay? I need another volunteer that's a little bit brave. It's not really that bad, but I'm going to demonstrate some European culture to you that I experienced once. I just need one volunteer. Here he comes. So I got into a cab when I was in Athens once, and so you're going to be me.
Okay.
So you're going to say, I want to go downtown.
I want to go downtown.
And then say it again.
Need to go downtown.
Say it again.
Need to go downtown.
Okay, figa do maximo. I'm the cab driver. Why did I just say that?
Because you don't understand him.
Yeah.
I understood him. He was speaking Greek. I was speaking Greek.
Okay.
There was 3 things that he asked me the question 3 times, and I said no twice. Didn't you see it? First one was. Second one was. Third one, I was pissed because there was also he violated, or I violated when I came into the cab, some implicit rules. The cab owner has the right in Greece to refuse any rider because he can take multiple passengers going in one direction. So the cab owner knew if I go downtown now, I'll get in a traffic jam. I'll get only one passenger because nobody else wants to get into a cab during a traffic jam. They will walk faster. So stupid idiot foreigner wants to go downtown when there's a traffic jam. And I told him no once. I told him no twice. He doesn't listen to me, so I yell at him, which in Greece is not a huge cultural violation because they use that to cast judgment on people. So the people around them could say, hey, you should leave that cab. That's why they yell. So that the rest of society can say, hey, he's right. Leave his cab. What are you doing? Stupid. So all of those implicit cultural things, I wasn't catching on to because it wasn't part of my culture, but it was part of his. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so we got our cab driver. So that's just one example of how culture is implicit, below the level of discussion, okay? And how we need to begin to engage with culture. So how do we do that? Now, if you look at your other handout there, we've got this. There's some critical aspects of engaging with culture. How do we start to address those beliefs? Now, if you look along the side here, there's one axis, and that axis is the who we love. And this seems pretty obvious. You love yourself, you love your teammates, and you love the community that you serve. Now, the problem with most cultural change programs, they deal with this, team. How do we affect the team? We don't talk about the culture of the team, the self-beliefs, okay? When you're dealing with the self, we try to develop the healthy self-love, full of dignity. When you ask the average person, what do you think their self-assessment is? Like, I find that when I ask people from blue collar to white collar, it's like, I have high values. I want to do work with high integrity. I want to work hard. I want to give my best. I want to be known as a nice person. They self-evaluate to the sky. I rarely find people like, I stink, I'm lazy, I'm really no good, you really shouldn't hire me. Occasionally you do get that, and you shouldn't hire them. You actually, you can feel compassion on them. You want them to feel those things, but most people have very high ideals for themselves. So you help them define that, okay? And then they develop this accountability and saying, this is who I am, because they've just taken the implicit, unspoken rules and made it explicit to their team in front of everyone else. I have these high ideals. I have these high values. I have these high expectations of myself. You're not telling them, they're telling you. It's very important for them to create their own culture, okay? The next is the team level. And the team level is here, instead of the team, most of the time the team is encouraged within the organization to serve. We're here so that we can produce. Actually, the main goal of the team is to create loving connection for each other, okay? They're here to develop one another to thrive and succeed in belonging, okay? They're here to help each other thrive, okay? Just as I said, connection creates thriving. So that means helping each other within our work. The team is there to help each other thrive. And then the community. This is another thing that we often leave off. We don't make the community, the people we serve, into real human beings. Who's at the end of that insurance policy? You know, who is the person that we serve? It becomes very significant to make them personified. So when these things get out of balance, when you have drama within your workplace, usually this is one thing that's out of balance. Either the person doesn't have a decent self-image or it's too inflated. They have a big ego. And like my boss, it made it all about the community. You know, we're going to serve these people so that I look good. That's often how bosses do it. I want to look good, so I'm going to make the team, and the team gets crushed. But there's also organizations that have it's all team focused. It's all about us, and they stop serving the community. And you know, they become like Kodak. They forget what they're even there for, and they make products that nobody wants because they stop thinking about the others. Okay? So keeping these in balance is very important. And then you got this across the top. You see it's knowing, emotional engagement, and promise. And this is kind of huge, okay? That's what love is. Okay, you can take that back to your relationships at home. We all want to feel known. So it's an acronym, KEEP. You need to be your brother's keeper. So we all need to feel known and understood to be loved. We all need emotional engagement. I need positive emotional feedback from you. If your spouse never says, I love you, and you know, you do something engaging with them, you go out to eat and you celebrate that, then there's no relationship there. And then there's promise. Will you be there for me? Will you grow? Will we become something? So promise is pretty significant as well. So think about relationships, like your closest possible relationships, like my spouse, she knows me. Like we've been married since we were 19. She knows me. We have emotional engagement. We have times that we do this a lot. She's always going to be there. I never worry, like, is she going to be there for me? She's going to be there for me. And then I have other, like, I'm going to go this weekend and visit friends in Chicago from high school. They know me since I was 14. You know, I was business partner with one of them. There's emotional engagement, but the promise isn't always high. I don't promise to be there for them all the time. I see them once every 5 years, but when we show up, we connect again. Different kind of relationship, equally valid. But all three of those things are elements of relationship. Okay, so another exercise. Haul out your sheet. We're going to do a little, you're going to fill this out yourself. So in this top quadrant here, where you see the self and knowing, we're going to answer this question. You might write down some words in that top quadrant there. Okay, this is an ultimate question, so it sounds a little bit morbid. If you were to die, what would you want to be known for? How would you want to be eulogized? Write down some words. What would you want people to say about you when you're not there? Write down some words there. How would you want to be known as an individual? So you're dealing with the understanding the values and beliefs and traits that shape you. And this comes from the past, okay? You understand yourself from examining the past. This is about being engaged in the present. So let's go to the team quadrant here, and we'll evaluate a little bit of emotional connection. Now, obviously, we actually do this over 27 weeks so that you're continuously engaging your staff, not just like the 5 minutes that we're doing this here. So the question for this question is, write down how you felt in the best team experience you ever had. How did that team experience make you feel? Could be an athletic team experience, could be a work experience, could be a nonprofit experience, a church experience. What were the feelings you felt when you felt like this team is great? How did you feel? Okay, and then moving along to community and promise. So this square here, if you were to take a survey of your community, meaning the people that you serve, what would you want them to say about your product or service? So you get to fill in the survey. What do you want them to say about your product or service? The HR department is blah, blah, blah. Or, if you serve directly a community, like, yeah, those people think we're great servers and our product is amazing. And what do you want them to say? That kind of gives you an idea of what promises you think you're making in your mind. Okay, so we're going to take about a minute for you to share one of those things with other people at your table. So just take about a minute and pick one of those squares and share it with the other people at your table. fact, let's just do the self square so it's not so hard. What are some of the values that you'd want to be known for? So if you've got a big table of 6, do 2 groups of 3. Okay. Would you feel okay having your teammates help you keep you accountable to your values? Do you think people will be offended that, you said that you wanted to be loving and kind to people. You said that your family was important. You shouldn't be here at 7:30. You should go home.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want your teammates to keep, I know, I can maybe spell you because I know something about you. I know your values. Would you want your teammates to do that? So this is a way to explicitly, because a lot of times you don't ever talk about this. So we're taking the implicit values of the heart and we're making them explicit. And we're doing that for the self, for the team. And you imagine when teams get together and say, who do we really want to be? Do we want to be the winning team or the underdogs? They usually don't self-define as like, we want to be known as really, we want, and most people say, you know what, I want my community people that I serve to feel good about the product that I give. We feel good about that. So when you fill out this whole matrix of what emotional engagement and promise looks like to the self, what promises am I making to myself to grow? What promises am I making to the team? And you make this explicit to your team, culture starts to develop. And it's not the culture that the top is saying, you need to be this. It's coming from, that's why we start off with the self as the foundation of the culture. When someone self-defines really nobly, they start to define their team nobly, and then they start to treat their community with the same vigor and excitement. Okay, so it's all about serotonin. It directs all the energies. And the nice thing about this, it's subtle, but a lot of times you have these community and employee engagement things, and then you have, we still need to track the business component over here. They put business and numbers and financials outside of this. Whereas this encompasses, like, if you're loving and serving your community, you're going to be creating products that are for them. You're going to be creating services that are excellent. Your customer service is going to be amazing. Your product is going to be amazing. Not as a result of you met the numbers, as a result of you cared so much. Every organization is made up of people. Take the people out of your organization, what do you have? It's going to die quick, isn't it? So people are the power, and culture is the power behind the people. Okay? So it's not enough just to know the ultimate why that motivates people. It is important that, like I said with this diagram, I think I have it here, that we lead people to this, but we can't lead them with these tools. We need to go down here and start leading here. We still have to be competent managers, but now we're being competent managers because of this. We know why we're being competent managers. We're not being competent managers so we can keep getting a paycheck. We're being competent managers because we care. I care about the people we serve. I care about the people I serve with. I care about myself. All of that starts to elevate the why, and we create a culture that's inspiring people by taking their implicit core values that most people have and bringing them out rather than keeping them hidden. Like my son-in-law went to work all day. It's like, do you guys have ever any meetings? Do you ever talk about anything? No. They just expect us to follow the rules. And you know what? You can do that. Just because you can do a business like this. I point out that Hitler made rockets, complicated rockets with slave labor. I don't think they were engaged. You can accomplish a lot with people who don't give a rip about what you're doing. That's no indication that you're actually treating people well. Okay? So, I'm going to wrap up here with our inspirational William Wallace. So we actually have a video of him from 500 years ago that we're going to play here. William Wallace was, in my mind, an ultimate why kind of leader. I mean, you see the backstory. He's fighting because he doesn't want his family to be destroyed by somebody else. You know, the lords just come in and take away the wives. And his wife dies. And so he's impassioned by that. He wants to serve each other. He wants to fight for Scotland, for all the wee people that are out there. And in this video that we'll show, you'll see bits of business. Like you'll see the competition who's like way bigger than you. You'll see the Scottish lords who are, don't really care about the people. And you can see the employees that are disengaged. And you'll see William Wallace and his small team walk in that are engaged, and they're following this guy. And so let's watch the video here. Hopefully it'll run. And there's the competition. Disengaged employees. You'll notice some of them are leaving off the back. So they go on to follow William Wallace into battle because he's fighting for them. He's fighting for himself and he's fighting for his team. He's using his freedom so that they can live lives that live towards the ultimate why. They're not being taken from by the Scottish lords or from the English. They're being motivated. They could see that he's motivating by the ultimate why. And even after he dies, the English capture and kill William Wallace, but they continue to follow where he led towards the ultimate why. And this really is not an easy task for all of us. We're all challenged by this. We have to go back and face a culture that is like the English, set up for power, for achievement, and it's scary. We fight an uphill battle against a culture that doesn't want us to follow the ultimate why. And you guys are in the front lines of this as leaders, okay? So I challenge us that today we learned about what inspires all individuals, each individual here, and what inspires whole organizations, whole groups of people to do things. And so I hope that you'll take the knowledge of the ultimate why back to your organizations and lead to the ultimate why, which is loving connection. Thanks.